Hi and welcome to this Blueberry Markets video update with me, John Kibler, Head Currency Analyst. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the week ahead analysis. We're going to highlight the strengths and weaknesses of the currencies, and we're going to highlight some charts of interest from that. So obviously last week we saw the US dollar start to decline a little bit more, and that has continued following into that week, and we can see it's reflected here on the strength meter that ever since it hit that sort of reversal area, we've started to see the dollar weaken. So I'm expecting some further dollar downside. We obviously, in a previous video as well, if you want to check that out, I'll put a link into the blog below, but essentially the US dollar has a very high commitment of trader signals for shorts. The commercials are the commercial short contracts, I'll try and get my words right today, are very high at the moment, and that could lead to a decrease in the price of the US dollar. And we do have a nice false breakout on the dollar index, which I'll talk about in a second. So that could lead to a little bit more dollar downside. Despite the euro being apparently one of the stronger currencies last week, I feel like this is a little bit of a false move at the minute. There was a couple of currencies that were obviously weaker than the dollar, which was the euro, which was the dollar, and the yen. And I think that's where the change for the euro has come in. I think it's still weaker than the majority of the currencies, and I would still look for some further euro downside in the short term. And we're going to take a look at potentially a euro pound move in this video. Yen still the weakest currency. As you can see this week, yen has completely devalued against the majority of the currencies. It is the weakest. However, we are now in the reversal zone. So are we going to start to see some buying come back in? Potentially, but we need to see some kind of changes on the charts before we even consider seeing this move. We need to see at least these numbers starting to move higher in order to give the yen an opportunity to be a buyer of it. But selling off quite aggressively at the moment. I expect that sort of selling to continue. It's just, where do we see the value in those trades at the minute? It's quite hard to pick a decent area to look for some short opportunities at the moment. So or some buying opportunities on it. So we'll keep an eye out on stuff, but nothing too in depth there on the yen this week. Going on to the US dollar index then, what we can see is that on this weekly time frame, we've got this sort of false breakout pattern happening. This was the sort of area that we talked about in the previous video. We then had this really nice inside candlestick form. Now, when inside candles form, there often is a sort of reversal setup forming, or a impulsive phase coming into the market, and we can see in this case it was a reversal as those commercial short contracts increased rapidly. We saw price break above the high and then close back within this range. This usually is quite a strong reversal signal in the market, so we could expect some further downsides come next week. And if it is going to decline lower, where could it go to? Well, it could come back into this previous structure level just through here around about 93.50, as this is the previous high. So we're either going to see price pull back down into that, pull back up, and then either take out the lows and continue to the downside, or we're going to see price just come into this area and reject and continue its move higher. However, I think that we're going to see a little bit more of a decline in the dollar, but we have to wait for that signal to come into play. At the moment, we're still technically in an uptrend on the daily time frame. The market is making higher highs and higher lows. We're potentially forming a double top pattern here at the moment with the neckline just through here. However, looking at these two candlesticks, I think what we've got here is a nice low range in pin candlestick. Then we've got an inside candle. So if price breaks the low of this inside candle on the daily, I think we're going to see some further downside back to at least that 93.50 area. One thing you can do is look at the 4-hour time frame. The double inside, or the inside candlestick here, will show you that there's a bit of a range forming there. If price was to break out of that, look for those dollar weakness moves. Which brings me on to pound, because I like the opportunity on pound. I think that we've got this nice, we had this bit of a false breakout of 136. Price closed below it. We looked like we were going to see an absolute sink of the pound at that time. The Bank of England then went a bit hawkish in their tone and decided to talk about the potential to hike interest rates. We've seen pound be a bit bullish ever since. Again, when we see these sort of inside candlesticks, it shows us that there's an accumulation forming and price has started to sort of break higher because of that. Now that we're kind of making that move, if that's going to be an impulsive phase, where could we expect price to go into? Well, it will likely be the previous structure highs, which was around about this 138.60 area. So these highs in here would be of interest to us if price could make it to that point. So going on the daily time frame, if the weekly is going to be in an impulsive phase to this area, what we should see is higher high and higher lows for them. We have that pattern now where price has completed the higher high. So what I would want to see is price come back into this structure zone here, which is going to be between, let's just map this out, it's going to be between 136.72 and down into these lows just through there, or these opens and closes around about 136.20. That would be an ideal area to see price come back into. Then what we're going to look for is some 4-hour price action in at this point, because what we want to see is the 4-hour trend agree with that. So if price can pull back into here, okay, reject these lows perhaps, okay, that would be an idea to start looking for long opportunities on pound up to this target of 138.60. So pound looking pretty good. Same with Aussie, going to continue looking for buys on Aussie. If it can pull back, that'll be great. We had some really nice opportunities to buy Aussie going into the, last week. We talked about getting long on the change of trend on the 4-hour time frame. Now price is bullish. You know, if we see any kind of retracement phases to this week, we should continue to look for long positions. What I want to be looking for is a daily pullback now. Let's see if we can get a decent retracement phase. There's a couple of areas that I like for price to come back to. The first one is around about 0.73. The reason why I like this area so much is because this is where we had that change in trend pattern. So when price came down, rejected, we had these lower highs and lower lows. Price came back up, formed what we thought was that inverse head and shoulders pattern, broke out of that, and it's just continued to sort of motor to the upside. We haven't really had a decent retracement phase. So an ideal area would be a retest of 0.73 for a long opportunity through there. Alternatively, if this trend is going to be strong and we're not going to see that sort of deep retracement phase, just keep an eye on the daily time frame. We may only retrace slightly back to 7370. You can see there's a little bit of a shelf in price just through here. So this zone through there may be a place where price finds support. And what you can look for is if you get these low ranging candlesticks, okay, where they're very small in range, they're staying within this sort of bullish candlesticks range. If we see anything like that, very low and small, then that could be an opportunity to buy back up into the swing highs through there on Aussie US dollar. Finally, then we're going to go on to Euro Pound. Now, Euro Pound's an interesting chart for me because Euro's been quite weak. Pound is getting stronger. If the Bank of England are going to hike interest rates, that could create a sort of bullish tone for the pound. Could strengthen it further. Now, Euro Pound pretty much trades within a large range. If we look, just zoom out slightly on this weekly time frame, you can see that this range has been since about 2016. Price has created and formed this range since then, and we've had multiple retests of the highs, not many retests of the lows. So we could be seeing price pull back into the swing lows down through here. If the pound is going to strengthen substantially, maybe we'll finally see a breakout of this area. However, because the range has been going on for so long, we may just see price come and reject it. But could we be coming back down and retesting it? That's what we're going to be looking at shortly. So what can we kind of see at the moment? If I zoom right in, and we can see this weekly time frame has actually broken through the previous swing lows now, which is telling us that the market is making lower lows and lower highs. It's now potentially continuing its downtrend move to this area. So what I'd like to look at is the lower time frame trend, and if I actually go to the daily and just zoom out, or so actually I should zoom in slightly, what I want to identify are the key structure points. Well, we've got the previous structure lows, which could act as resistance as well. If price was to come back into here, we could see a rejection there. The key lows for me are a little bit higher up. If we actually look at around about 85.30, we have this zone through here, which the market has rejected numerous times recently. We've had rejections here, a little bit of one there, a couple of rejections here as well. So maybe if price could just move a little bit higher, that could be the area where we want to get short. But I do think euro pound heading towards these range lows is something that we can look for, as price has now created a new weekly lower low candlestick. So keep an eye on these charts this week. I hope you enjoyed the video update. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to see some more of our Forex content. We'd really like to get to 5,000 subscribers, and if you haven't hit that sub button yet, please do so, and check out some more of our Forex content, and I will speak to you in the next video.